At this point, I'm sure most of you have seen the memes about being a burnt-out gifted kid. Whatever social media you may use, if you're my age, you've likely run across one on your timeline. Maybe it was a TikTok about not being able to consume the amount of literature you could when you were a fourth grader, or a text post on Instagram talking about procrastination. But let me backtrack for a moment before I get into the thick of it. For those in the audience who aren't a part of my generation and may not have seen this type of content, gifted kid burnout is a term that's been recently popularized that refers to the emotional or academic drop-off that many students who had been labeled gifted as a child go through in high school or college. These students were often placed in advanced tracks from a young age in an attempt to continue to stimulate them and challenge them as they learned. For me, that meant my teachers trying desperately to find collegiate-level literature that was appropriate for a fourth grader to be reading. Below that level, I would breeze through the books in a matter of days, or most of the time, hours. Unfortunately, that meant they ended up recommending textbooks a lot of the time, which wasn't exactly what you'd call thrilling for my younger self. While the intention was good, placing me in advanced courses did not challenge me in the way I had hoped. Our gifted program fell short. I did go to a private school, and so I thought that might have been the root of the problem. But as I did more research, I found that there are many shortcomings to be found in almost all established fast-track programs across the United States, both private and public. For starters, what does it even mean to be gifted? I could stand up here and tell you that it officially means having an IQ of 130 or higher, but I'd be misleading you if I were to say that. There is no official definition or qualifications that deem someone as gifted, especially not when it comes to placing young students into so-called gifted programs. Children usually end up in these programs at the request of their parents, or if their teacher observes them to be academically skilled and not challenged enough. The first issue with this method of sorting students is the assumption that natural talent in a few areas of study equate to the ability to learn at an advanced level in all of their classes. Students are placed into all advanced tracks, even when some of their classes start to become overwhelming. As I mentioned before, from a young age, I have had a fairly high literacy and verbal comprehension score, which landed me in advanced classes. Unfortunately for me, and unbeknownst to my teachers at the time, I really struggled with math and science, and I still do. But I continued to take those classes, stress myself out, and earn lower grades than I could have if I had received an on-level instruction in those areas of struggle. It made me really doubt my own academic abilities, and after talking to my peers, I found that my experience with this is not unique. The second issue that comes to light when students are sorted based on a matter of opinion is that many people are not aware of some of the conditions that can be mistakenly perceived as gifted. According to a study done by the University of St. Thomas, roughly 14% of children placed into gifted programs were found to be neurodivergent, compared to the 4% found in the general population. This refers to people who have a separate cognitive process in disorders such as ADHD, autism, and dyslexia. The statistic seems pretty significant. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that neurodivergent people are more likely to have higher intelligence. Twice exceptional, or 2E, is the term used to refer to students who are both gifted and neurodiverse. And though 2E kids are not a rarity, it's much more common to have teachers or parents mistake a child for gifted, when in reality, they're just neurodivergent. That might seem a bit strange, but when the traits of neurodivergent people are compared to those common in gifted students, you'll find they're very similar. Both tend to be driven, extremely passionate about certain subjects, and very creative. However, when children who are simply neurodivergent and not gifted are placed into advanced programs, they're thrusted into a fast-paced and high-stress environment without having their individual needs met. But as is expected of them, they work and work and work until they can't keep up anymore without the accommodations that they didn't know they should have been having all along. This leads to burnout, extreme lack of self-confidence, and negative self-image. This lack of support doesn't just affect those who are neurodivergent, though. Some of the people who are most impacted by this lack of support are the students who truly are gifted and aren't necessarily neurodivergent. As long as they can remember, these kids have been praised for their good grades and natural intelligence, so much so that it often becomes the biggest part of their identity. This isn't an issue until they run into a subject or a class that they might not be so skilled in, or doesn't come so easily to them. It might be a struggle. They might even get the first B of their life. To many people, that's not a big deal. So what? A B is still a good grade. It's not the end of the world. But when those grades feel like your entire identity, it can result in emotional breakdowns, burnout, and completely questioning your value as a person. The expectation of perfection is unknowingly enforced by teachers, parents, and other mentors from a very young age, often leading to the student themselves becoming their own harshest critic. In a paper from the Child Mind Institute, one teacher explains, although all children are faced with anxiety, the gifted must often deal with it at younger ages than other children, and with a keener sense of the possibilities open to them. All this pent-up anxiety and self-doubt can be dangerous, and without proper emotional support from mentors, students may turn to dangerous or risky behaviors to cope. However, when these incredible students are shown emotional support, they're often more successful than people ever expected them to be. So what might a functioning gifted program look like? Well, for starters, it might be beneficial to stop labeling these programs as gifted. When there's no standard definition of what gifted truly means, it makes much more sense to simply consider these classes advanced and allow students to take these individual advanced classes as they choose, instead of thrusting them into every difficult class a school has to offer. That's the case for most high school students, so why don't we offer the same to younger students? In a functioning advanced program, as we're now calling it, teachers should also be more thoroughly educated about the traits of neurodivergency. When neurodivergent students are treated and given the accommodations they need to succeed in advanced courses and even regular courses, they are able to be just as successful as their neurotypical peers. The last, but in my opinion, the most important aspect of a successful academically advanced program is the psychological and emotional support offered to its students. Offering wellness days, counselors, and safe mentors to whom young students can turn to teaches the importance of self-care and stress management. In the long run, it can prevent burnout and encourage gifted students to reach out for help instead of beating themselves up for their perceived failures. This whole time, I have talked about the causes of burnout in gifted kids, but I want to finish on a slightly different note. Anyone can experience burnout, no matter your intellect, current stress level, or responsibility load. And with our world flipped upside down in the middle of this pandemic, I want to encourage all of you to be gentle to yourselves and to those whom you might not think need that kindness and that gentleness, and to reach out for help when you need it. Thank you.